Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of The Pivot of Change. Today I have a special guest and it's Jannecke. She's a very passionate seeker for deeper meaning of life, and she's also a former musical theater artist. And a lot of years ago she founded Wisdom from North, what started as an interview series on YouTube, and she has now interviewed more than 400 transformational teachers from all over the world that inspire and help you to expand your consciousness and transform your life. And now she also expanded her business Wisdom from North as well. And Jannecke now helps people to regain their inner power and find courage. So welcome, Jannecke.
Thank you so much. It's lovely being here. And thank you so much for that wonderful introduction.
Yeah, you're welcome. So what I find really interesting is when you started Wisdom from North, because then doing interviews on YouTube, and that was still really new because it started in 2012, I think. So yeah, what inspired you to start Wisdom from North?
Well, it wasn't something I planned at all. And I think life is often like that we don't plan it. It just happens, especially if you start going the inner journey and start listening within, not going on the autopilot state that I talk a lot about these days. I'm really passionate about inspiring people to look more into what they believe in and their beliefs, and start to let go of all beliefs that are not serving them, and then opening up more for the true voice that's within. And what I noticed was that there was a deep longing to understand more of life's mysteries. And not only that, but also to talk about it, because I was a person who wanted basically to talk about it all the time. And the people around me wasn't that excited about the big questions of life. So they kind of got tired of me just bringing that subject up again and again. And I was really like hung up on it. Like I needed answers. And then a lot of things happened. It's a long story. Like I really fell into depression in my 20s, and because I lost my voice. So in a way, I turned away a bit from musical theater, because I felt that maybe this is not what I'm supposed to do. And some of the joy disappeared because of the troubles with my voice. And the voice came back, but it was still something that has died of the joy of being on the stage and singing, doing a role. And then I actually started to study to become a primary teacher, to have like the safe education, because I honestly didn't know what to do. Because all my life I had decided that I was going to be a musical theater artist. And all of a sudden, when I was like 29, I was like, I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. And then I started to study, but I wasn't inspired by that either. And it was really one moment. I never forget it, because I was sitting at a cafe and I was complaining to my dad, and he was also a bit complaining about life. So we were both just complaining about that. We had a bad day and we weren't very inspired, but it was good to just be together. And then he felt better after I had coached him, and I felt as miserable. And I was like, what I really want to do is just to travel around and interview people about the big questions of life. And in that moment, something happened. It was very strange. It was like this very clear moment when I realized, but that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. And usually when thoughts like that come, there are so many thoughts that are saying, but you can't do it, that it just shuts you down immediately. But there weren't any thoughts that were stopping me. I found, when I look back at it, I think it's really peculiar, because it felt like this just open tunnel that I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go in that direction. I'm going to buy a camera. I'm going to get a website. So there was so much fuel, so much drive on that idea. And then same day, I went on a jogging tour, and the name Wisdom from North fell into my head. And I was like, that's the name. And then I called my friend, and she was like, oh, it's funny that you say this, because I'm actually now coming out with my astrology. And I was like, really? And she's like, I'm really ready. And I was like, well, let me interview you. So it started actually with my friend and I. And after that, I just couldn't stop. And then very quickly, I got some few big names. I got Alexander, who has written many books about near-death experience. And he was like just coming out with his story at that time. I got a lot of big people in Norway. Akiane Kramarik, I remember, that has painted, you know, these beautiful paintings from she was 4 years old or 10 years old or very young. So I got very big names, and I was just hooked. And it just continued and continued and continued. And yeah, now it's just part of my life, I guess. Wisdom from us has become a part of my life, and I know so many people, and I sometimes wonder, where would I have been if I didn't make that choice, if I didn't follow that hunch that day?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know that your interviews has inspired so many people from all over the world. So thank you for following that. Yeah, because I've also listened and enjoyed a lot of your interviews as well. And what I'm also really interested in, what kind of happened to you the moment when you lost your voice? Yeah. How has it impacted your life in that moment?
That was all the way back when I was 21. It was one of the darkest moments in my life, because it all is connected with my self-esteem. Because since I was 7 years old, I started playing the role as little Cosette in Les Miserables here in Norway. And then I got a record, and then I was Annie. And so I got so much attention all the time, and I got role after role after role. So basically, I was just back and forth from the theater and school. And then I got the role as Rizzo in Grease, and it was a big success. I got so much applause again as an adult, as a 20-year-old girl, on a big theater in Oslo. And then I landed the role of Audrey in Little Shop of Horrors, and was like, wow. I mean, I felt that it didn't stop. I was just having success after success. And then all of a sudden, I felt that I started getting more hoarse every day. And I remember my uncle was like, Jannecke, like during Christmas, your voice is really hoarse. And I was like, no, it's fine. But then I understood something is wrong. Like I can hardly speak, and I couldn't hit the notes anymore. And I went to a doctor, and I was like denying it all. I was like, no, I just need to sleep, you know? And then he said, you have nodules on your voice, and you cannot speak for a long time, and you need to rest, and you can definitely not do this role. And from having like everything, and I had a great boyfriend, I had a great life, all the success, and this big role that probably would be my big hit or my big breakthrough, it just, all of a sudden, I couldn't speak to people. My boyfriend and I broke up, and I just had to disappear in a way, just be quiet for a long time. It was half a year or something. And then I just fell into depression because I had no idea who I was. Like I had no idea what to do, and I didn't feel any value because I didn't realize that at that time, but I see that now, of course. And that's part of why I'm doing this work, to help other people love themselves, because I had no self-esteem. I had a lot of self-confidence. Like every time I got attention, I got confident. But I didn't know who I was without my voice and without the applause. So looking back, I think it's very symbolic what happened, that I lost my voice in order to find my voice again. Like it's very symbolic. And I realized that I had to go within and go a long way within and find who I was without the voice and without all the attention and the applause. Like, was I worth anything? And that was a long journey that I took. And looking back today, where I'm today, I feel like it doesn't have to take that long for other people, but for me it did, because at that time we didn't have YouTube, it wasn't accessible. all this information. So I had to figure it out by myself, going within, reading self-help books, just trying to understand why am I here if I can't be successful or be somebody, So that path lasted a long time, and it's still going on. I mean, I still sometimes fall back to old patterns, but then I notice them. I'm like, oh, there's that thought again. But now I don't compromise myself anymore. Now I listen to my inner voice because I know it's worth listening to. Before it was like, who cares what Jannecke thinks, It's all about the director telling me what to do or other people. And I didn't know that I was living my life for myself. I mean, it sounds crazy and a bit sad, but I had no idea that I could be the queen in my own home. But now I do. And that's why I want to help other people do the same, follow their dreams, follow their inner voice, and wake up to that, oh my goodness, it's my life. Like, I should listen to my voice, and I must love myself first. That's where I need to start. So that's the message I really want to get across to people, is to start that inner journey and really find that value in themselves, having themselves. If you don't have yourself, you don't have basically anything. So, and that can really transform your life. And that's today, I've created a membership, and for those who want to dive deeper, so they're able to take a more rapid spiritual growth, because if you don't practice, you fall back to the conditioned mind. We can talk more about that if you want to, but
yes, I would love to hear more about that as well, because what I've also been realizing that we all have these fears creeping up, right? When we are about to do something, especially something that's really different, and it isn't what most people in a direct environment do, and that can really hold us back, and actually can also stop us from expressing ourselves fully, because we're so conditioned we have to be in a certain way. And could you maybe tell a little bit more about the conditioning you mentioned?
Yeah, first I want to ask you, where are you from?
I'm from Holland.
Holland, right. Yeah, because sometimes it can be a little bit different in some cultures, but I think mainly in the Western society, a lot of us are fearful of not being good enough. Like, that's a social syndrome in a way. I am not enough. And that comes from conditioning. And in many ways, it's common, what is it called? A belief system that many of us have, a collective, that was the word, a collective belief that a lot of us have, that we're not enough. And I think that's because we are programmed or conditioned in 3 ways, basically, that I am aware of, at least. And that's verbal conditioning, like what you heard, especially from when you were 0 to 7 years old, what the adults around you said. And they didn't need to say it directly to you, but maybe they said that, don't get your hopes up, because it's better to be disappointed or it's better not to, or don't put your stakes too high because you might get disappointed. Or like somebody else said that she was going to the store with her mom, and she was like always saying, you're not getting anything, and just be aware, and you're not getting anything. So that was something she heard again and again, you're not getting anything. So she has been struggling with that all her life as an adult. Like, I can't get anything. Like, I can't receive, having problems with receiving. So there's things we hear, like, for instance, that you have to work hard to make money. That's a very collective one. You have to work hard. Or life is a struggle. Life is a struggle. You have to work hard at the relationships, or you can't really get what you want in a man or in a girl. You have to settle for less. This is good enough. Things like that. Or something that you saw. So modeling, like monkey see, monkey do. There's an expression that says that. And we often see what the adults are doing, and we mimic them, because the adults for a child are like gods. They're basically like gods. They don't know how to navigate in this world. So what the adults that they love, that they're 100% loyal to, like the closest ones, the parents, grandparents, maybe the adults in the kindergarten, they want to be loyal to them, and they don't question what they're doing. So they're mimicking them. So that's the second one. And the third one is specific experiences, something that happens to you that makes you create a belief. And these beliefs are basically, most of them are unconscious. So we're not even having a belief. Like I had a long time a belief that I was not creative. And I wasn't aware of it, but every time I was going to approach a creative task, I was like, I cannot do it because you do it, because I'm not creative. I'm not a creative person. And then I started noticing, because when I started doing this work, I became very aware of my thoughts. So I was like, why am I saying that all the time? That I'm not a creative person. I mean, I'm in musical theater. Isn't that the definition of being a creative person, being an artist? And then I realized that something happened when I was around 7 years old, that a friend of my father, he was very funny, and I asked or said to him, oh, you're so funny. And he said, well, you know, we normal people, we improvise, but you actors, you just remember lines. And that just stuck with me, that I was an actor that just remembered lines. I couldn't improvise and be funny. I just memorized. So I went back, and then I worked with that inner child, and I made her, and this is, you know, I'm sharing this because then you can practice that yourself. That's a way to change that belief, meet that inner child and convince her that she is creative, she is loved, and then go back to the moment here and now and affirm it again and again. Whenever it comes up, I'm not creative. Oh yes, I am creative. I'm born creative. I improvise all the time. So, and that's the journey, you know, that's the work. So we have beliefs about everything, basically everything. And most of them are unconscious or in the subconscious. So it's not, I would say, and some says that is a quick fix, but I will say that that is not my experience, that it is a quick fix. I think it's an ongoing journey that we have to stay on. And that's why I'm creating this platform, so we could, or a membership, so we can stay on the path together and people can have a year's access, because I don't think that one weekend would transform you. I think it can inspire you and you can start digging deeper and be inspired to start the process. But I think you have to have the process going. Otherwise, you so easily fall back to that conditioned mind. That's at least my experience. That is so easy to just fall back to default. Oh, there I am there again. So you have to course correct like all the time. And that takes some time, or at least a very concentrated focus if you're going to do it very quick.
Yeah, definitely agree with that, because of course we can have like breakthroughs. So we can have like a breakthrough moment which can happen instantly, but to actually integrate all the things we learned in that breakthrough and to really keep that up and integrate it in our life, that just takes a certain period. And then it's really important to stay really committed. And I love what you also mentioned by also sharing your memory as well, how it kind of impacted you and changed your beliefs. Because what I've learned working like one-on-one with clients as well when it comes to childhood trauma is that a lot of times it isn't what we would normally call trauma. So it's not, we have like extreme traumatic experiences, and yes, they impact us in a very deep way, and they really can cause a lot of negative beliefs and a lot of problems in our life later on as well. But a lot of times we forget that even the small or more subtle experiences can really impact us so much. And it's what I always explain with when it comes to more inner child healing, is that look at it from the perspective of a child. You know, you're still so small, and so when someone says something to you, especially an adult, and especially what you said, like your parents that are like gods and they're like everything to you, it can impact you so deeply. Because I also had one client of mine, and she didn't realize what was going on in her life. She felt something was really holding her back and keeping her stuck, and she was like, I don't know what it is. I have such good parents. I have an amazing relationship with my parents, and they never were really angry at me or really mean. And I knew she was speaking the truth, and it wasn't like suppressed. And then when we went into that wound, she came to this memory where her parents were arguing, and they just didn't see her. They just didn't see that she was there, and she was in the room. The parents were really arguing very badly. And even though the parents never were like really negatively and mean towards her, just being in that environment at that moment, and her parents not seeing her when she was really little, impacted her so much. And this is what I notice really often with myself and also with clients, that it doesn't have to be something so big. And that's what we a lot of times think.
Yeah, it's a great point, because it took me some time before I realized that as well. And I was also a person who said, but I have had the perfect childhood. I remember I went to a therapist, and she was like, but there's something that happened, I think, with your parents or your mom. And I was like, but nothing, I love her and I love him, and they've been beautiful, and there's nothing there. I was like almost getting upset, because I was like, there was nothing there. There has to be something about me. There's something wrong with me. Fix me, not them, they're great. So it took me a long time to understand, wow, okay, so I'm not blaming them when I'm going back and seeing something that happens, because that was a big obstacle I needed to go through. I thought I was blaming them, or I thought I was hurting them by saying that something happened in my childhood. But we're just humans. I mean, humans, we argue, no one is perfect, and everybody, this has helped me, everybody's doing the best from their level of consciousness. They're doing their best, actually, from their level of consciousness. And we are adults today, we have kids around us. We make mistakes and make them feel something. So that happens all the time. And I think that's part of the journey, that we are on a journey to experience both things, light and darkness and contrast. But by acknowledging that, wow, it was a small trauma. Yes, for a child, that was really hurtful. It was easier for me also to go back and see, okay, now I can start understand why I feel or do like I do. And I think that's important for people to know, that to let go of that judgment of yourself, that, oh, it's about you, or think that you're afraid of going against your parents or something like that, hurting them. It's not about that. It's just about understanding why you took on that belief that you did, probably subconsciously, like you said. We're not even aware that we make a belief, because it's so deep down. We're such complex systems. And I wanted to say also that I agree with you that sometimes we can get an insight very instantly. And I think that we have different paths. Like some people have a long path and a long development and expansion. Other people that I've interviewed can have a very rapid awakening. And it's not like, ooh, I became Buddha, but they have a very big opening in a way. Big opening. So it's like from that day to the other, that all of a sudden their perspective totally changed on the world. Like I remember I interviewed Aaron Doughty, and he meditated 3 times. And I think it's so funny. It was like 3 times. And then after the 3rd time, his whole vibration shifted. Like he totally saw the world in a different way. And he felt that something shifted within him. Like his vibration raised so much that he felt so much more happy. Like every day he was having another vibrational set point, he calls it. And that hasn't happened with me, like from that day to the other. It has been a slow opening to more and more better self-esteem, more love, more like, ooh, yeah, no, that's not a problem to do. Or I used to be afraid of that. Why was I afraid of doing that? I'm not afraid of that any longer. And the challenge with that kind of development or opening is that you kind of don't notice your change before you start to reflect where you were 10 years ago or last year. So I am training myself in actually seeing my steps and seeing where I've come. Since it hasn't been so rapid. So that's important too. Just remember that all paths are different and no path is wrong. So if somebody has like an opening or an insight, that doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It means that you are, I mean, everything is perfect as the way it should be. I'm thinking, or I'm believing that the universe is giving you exactly what you need on your path. And maybe that is not to have like a sudden awakening, for instance.
Yeah, I love it that you mentioned that, because I was actually talking to a very good friend of, and she's also a mentor of mine today. And we talked about our differences, and she said like that she learned a little bit more slowly and more gently, like what you mentioned in your life path. And she's like, Sanne, you learned the hard way. And that was also what happened to me, because she mentioned the experience of Aaron Dottie, that he was really in meditation and has this spiritual awakening. With me, it was different. At 18 years old, I had a heart attack, which led to my spiritual awakening. And usually in my life, pretty more difficult experiences have led to major change and major openings in my life, which helped me to grow really fast and change really fast. But at the same time, it's really learning the hard way. And I think that also is what kind of inspired me to research more about childhood trauma and all those things. That was kind of my initiation. So with a lot of people, it's just the interest in spirituality. And with me, it was like, why did this all happen? You know? And to get a deeper understanding of that. And I actually love it that everyone's experiences are so different. And
yes.
Yeah, and you notice like one of most people, like, because you've interviewed so many people about their experiences. And what is like one person you've interviewed, or you've probably have a lot, but that really, well, while you were interviewing, that you were having a shift or a breakthrough moment during an interview? Have you had that?
Yes, I have. And before that, I hadn't, because then I was like, oh, you know, there's so many great teachers. But he really stood out. His name is Emanuel Joel. And he has been through horrific experiences. It's like the worst of the worst you can imagine. He was a child soldier, a war soldier as a child. I don't remember which country it was. I don't remember. It was a couple of years ago. And I think he lost all his family, his friends. He killed a lot of people himself as a child. And then he turned this into, he turned darkness into light. He said that he met his demons. I think he sat in a closet or something, or I don't remember if that was a metaphor, but he said, I met all my demons. I let them come, and I met them all. And he worked on himself, and went through an enormous transformation. And today he says that I can't wake up without having joy in my heart. I need to have joy in my everyday life. Joy is what I live for now. And to speak about joy after having experienced what he has experienced, I mean, I can't even imagine losing one of my friends or family members. I can't even imagine killing another person and be able to live with that. I can't imagine having that conscious. So that, I think it was in a way very magical and mysterious, because I had been looking for an answer to the question, can everything be forgiven? Can all darkness, even the worst of the worst experiences that a human being can have, can that be turned into light, to Can it be turned around? Can it be transformed? And I felt that at least for me, I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, I received that answer that yes, I mean, the light is always stronger. Anything can be transformed into light. And that was like, it was really authentic. Like, he was really joyous. And I cried through that interview. It touched me so deeply on my, in my own heart as well, because I've been looking for that answer. And maybe you notice that you are an empathic person as well, or an empath, and you feel so much, and it's really difficult to be in this world sometimes, watching and thinking of all the horrible things that is happening. And that's also why I started doing this, because I had to make sense of things, because I didn't know how to handle my emotions when I watched the news. I was like, what can I do about this? I needed to put it somewhere, and I didn't have any place to put it. And that was also part of the depression, that I was like, but life is horrible. Why are we here? If it's just horrible. So I really needed to find a deeper reason to live, and a deeper reason for being here. It had to be something, something I wasn't getting. And now I feel like we have to, or I at least feel like I have to find my own meaning. It's me that is creating the meaning of Jannecke in a way, and I am my own purpose. I create my own purpose. At the same time, I still feel like there is a purpose there that I can open up to. You can call it destiny or a blueprint or something like that. At the same time, I love quantum physics, so I know we have infinite possibilities, but I think there are some timelines that are more, that are lighting up more than others. So you can go a higher path if you choose to, or another path, which is not wrong. It is just another path. You will experience something else. But we have the choice also to open up for a more and more, for a higher and a higher potential of ourselves. So that's really where I want to go. But it's hard sometimes, because we are humans, and we have contrast, and we have lower vibrating emotions that are all of a sudden coming, and we are influenced by so many things in the universe, the moon and the sun, and other people's feelings and emotions. So there's a lot to deal with. So I just put like this Instagram post today, and I was saying like, you're so brave just showing up on this planet. Like, you did it already. Just being here, that's really brave. Good for us.
Yeah, and I think those are like really difficult questions as well to ask and to linger around with. And what I've always realized is, when I came to trauma work and I got a deeper understanding of how it impacts us as humans, that every horror or everything that is like what we can barely understand is happening on this earth is because of trauma, and because of people feeling so separate from one another. And as an empath, it's hard for us sometimes to understand that, because you so much feel what other people feel. So what I have a lot of times that I'm afraid of hurting people, because when you hurt them, you hurt yourself at the same time. It's that feeling. But what I also realize that what also can happen with trauma is that people completely shut themselves off from the world, and it's no longer safe to feel connected to other people. And what I also sometimes have with those questions, that it's also okay not to know, and that the answer will come to you at the right time when you're ready. And I think that's also what you said with the interview. You are then ready to receive that information, because sometimes you just have to meet the right person that can tell it tell to you in a way that you can really understand.
See, that's where I'm also at in a way, because I've been really wondering about how this goes together, like putting in the action, taking charge and more responsibility in your life, and becoming more a conscious co-creator. At the same time, you have that mysticism, and that higher power or life itself, or the universe, or your destiny, or there, I believe that there's something higher than ourselves at play. But then we can play with perspectives, because we're connected to our higher selves, and we're connected to the universe, so we're one. So it gets really complicated. But somehow we probably have different awarenesses, and our higher awareness has one plan, and maybe your human self has one plan, and it's like, okay, now I'm going to do this, but maybe your higher self is like, but you're not ready, or you need to go through this before that can come. And I think that there is this divine paradox, that we meet paradoxes along the spiritual path, and the deeper you go, the more paradoxes you find, actually. And it can't almost be understood by the mind sometimes. I think the deeper we go, all of a sudden we just are feeling it, we're sensing it, we're knowing, but we can't really put it into words in a way, because we speak in language and in words, and we write, but the universal language is a bit different. It's more the energetic language, and there's so much symbolism, and it's so subtle. The inner voice can be so whispering, it can be so subtle, you can even not hear it or feel it, but it's still there. So my point is that I believe in a divine timing, I believe in a destiny. At the same time, I believe that we need to be conscious co-creators, because we do have free will. So it doesn't help, I think, to just sit back, do nothing, and just expect the universe to give everything to you. You need to actually do the work yourself, and then the universe will help you along the way, and it will map itself out as it's supposed to. When I started my spiritual journey very consciously in my 20s, I had a lot of spiritual experiences in a short period of time. And what I felt was that I got a lot of help. It was like, this, wow, I can hear things, I can feel things, I dream things, and I'm out of my body. And I had these amazing meditations where I got some answers, and I saw that I was only light and I was only love, and I understood in that moment that everybody was just love and light. But after that, I had to work so hard to get any experiences again. It was like they kind of just melted away. And all of a sudden I sat down and I meditated and nothing happened. I was like, what's going on? So I've come to believe that sometimes you get some extra help to be really inspired to go on the path. But then it's like, now you have to do it on your own. Like, now you have to do the real work. It's not coming as easily. And I heard that other people have experienced the same, that in the beginning, it seems like everything is just happening, and then it just stops. It's like, what happened? Have I lost the connection? So it is really a mysterious journey, but a very magical one. And in my work, I want to take the journey together with others, because I don't feel like we need to do this all alone. We can share our insights and perspectives, and then motivate each other to don't lose faith. You're just having maybe a bad day, and accept that, and we can support each other instead of doing it all alone, because it's so easy to then lose faith and feel like, there's something wrong with me. Like, I went to this course, but I'm not this is not helping. I must do something wrong. And then you cannot just call up the teacher and ask, what did I do wrong? Why is this not working for me? Because the course is over. And I've experienced that again and again, that I go to a course and then I have tons of questions afterwards. So that is why, for me, I wanted to create the platform where it was possible to stay there for a year online, and we could really take a longer journey together, because then things come up, and have a platform that's affordable, because many can't afford going to coaches. That would be great if we all could do that. But because that's really valuable. But that costs a lot to go to a coach, once a week. It costs a lot. So that's why, I created this is my my gift in a way. Like, I wanted to think, what did I miss on my journey? Okay, let's make that. Let's do that. That was a long rambling there.
Yeah. No, but I understand, and it's a lot of times kind of when we really find our purpose is like, what wish I would have had during that time.
Yeah.
And that can really help someone. And what I really like what you said as well is that in the beginning of the spiritual work, you can have all these experiences, and then we expect that to just continue. And what I always said, the way I see it, and is that we have our higher self and we have our physical self, and what actually happens is that they come closer together. So everything your experience will first be all this spiritual stuff, and then it's like, yeah, but you're here for a reason.
Right.
You're here on earth, and you're here in your body for a reason. You're not here to go out of body all the time, even if it can lead to really great insights and awakenings. But we're here to do things, and a lot of times when people expect things to just come to them, and I think that's why your example is so good, is that sometimes it can be just an idea that comes to you by the universe, but you need to act on it to really bring it into life. And a lot of times people think they're not being helped or they're not being supported, but maybe you then expect it to come in a certain way, and then you can block it from coming in. So that's why I think it's so good that we can speak openly about these experiences.
Oh yeah, I think it's very important.
So much, and we need connection, and that's what, when we can no longer find the answers within, or if we have found them, I think it's then time to share as well. Especially connecting more. I think that's the next step of like the spiritual path, is connecting with other people and helping each other out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so grateful for the teachers that have made YouTube videos and has channels and are ongoing giving out videos, because they have helped me. Like, many years ago, that was my salvation. That was it wasn't a psychiatrist or a psychologist. It was like YouTube videos that made the big difference for me, because they said things that resonated with me, and I could watch them for free, and I'm just so grateful for it. So I know that just watching one video, all of a sudden your energy can change. All of a sudden you raise your vibration, and you're like, oh, I feel so much better now. Or you get hope, yeah, right. It's just something that happens. I just experienced it yesterday, where something happened that was a bit sad, and I was like a bit sad about what happened. And then I was like, what am I going to do about it? I ended up in my mind, and then I started watching this video, and I was like, yeah, right. And I saw it all of a sudden from a different perspective, and such a more empowering perspective, where I was able to handle the situation in another way, instead of going into that dark place in a way. So we need each other, and we need each other to share. And I wanted to say what you said about bringing, what's up there here. It's so important. That experience that I had, where I just burst out of my heart, and I loved myself. I felt the love towards myself as I've never done before. Like, I realized, wow, I am just love, and everybody else is just love. And it's about taking that into my body and knowing that without having to meditate,
Mm-hmm.
And that's the trick. That's where I feel like the practice is for me to now it's just a memory in a way, but I can access that emotion because it's still in my cells, it's still in the experience, but I have to open up to it. I have to remind myself. I have to not just forget about it and then go back to the default state again. So that's why I'm very concerned about staying aware and conscious on the path, because it's so easy to forget about what we actually, the insights we did have, or the breakthroughs we did have, and fall back again. Because let's face it, our society is kind of giving the opposite message. So it's so easy to be influenced by that. And that's very human to do. So it is, for me, it's a bit back and forth, but it's like I'm vibrating more and more higher, but it's still like 2 steps back, and then, 3 steps forward, and then 2 back, and then it goes like that.
Yeah, I recognize it as well. And what I explain a lot is that I always have my highs and lows, and my extreme beautiful high moments, and then sometimes even shortly after a really like emotional breakdown, and it's all a part of it. And I think what's most important, that we can stay conscious and aware and present with ourselves in all of the different states that we're in. And you also talked about self-love, and what I always think is the most self-loving thing is to stay present with yourself even when you're in pain. And I learned to not to push it away, or just pretend like it's not there, but we can do a lot, and which I can also fall back into. But then it's always important to just remind ourselves, and that's why it's always good to have people in your environment, the people you connect with, that are going through similar things, because they can also remind you. And what you said, we can get distracted really easily by external drama or things that are going on. And you also mentioned the news. For example, I never really watch the news anymore, because it gives me such a horrible feeling when I watch the news. And it's not that I don't want to know what's going on. I am interested in that, and I always love having conversations with people about it, but in a conscious way, and not in a way where you're just bombarded with all these short facts and clips of all the horrible stuff that's happening in the world, because it's giving us such a limited view of what's really going on, the greater picture. And I think YouTube and things like that, platforms like that, have completely changed that as well. So we can now choose what we watch and who.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend that's calling it the YouTube temple. And I love that. I feel the same. Like, where would I have been without that YouTube temple? And I mean, we're so different. A lot of people don't understand what I'm doing here in Norway. They don't understand what I get out of it. Like, okay, the big questions, but why ask them? And then they can continue the conversation with me for a couple of minutes, and then they want to talk about something else. But I still have this hunger. And that is self-love to me, to honor that. Because when you do stand alone, it's so easy to think that is something wrong with you, or you're the odd one. But you can't really change that nature. I think that's really our soul blueprint in a way. That is what is not conditioned in a way. That is, I think we come into this world with an essence. So we can't deny our essence in a way. That's like, if we are all colors of the universe, we're different colors, and that's something we can't not be. So, and also self-love. I've been wondering about what is self-love, in this journey. What does it mean? Does that mean that I'm happy all the time and I feel great? Like, I always take my space and my power. But I come to realize that it's not that. It's like you said, embracing myself and accepting myself wherever I am, however I feel, whatever I'm doing. And that takes it to a whole new level. Even though I can do something I regret, or that I have a hard time forgiving, self-love isn't to forgive yourself. And also your past, forgiving your past. And I did an exercise on that, and I made a video about it on YouTube, that I thought it was difficult to forgive my inner child, because I thought that, she had been doing so many things that had now given me these beliefs that were very limiting. So I and I wasn't aware of this, but in the exercise, I realized I was a bit angry at her. And I was like, I really don't want to forgive you. Why couldn't you just, because I was a very humble child. Whenever I got all the applause, I was like, oh, I shouldn't take up too much space. And I was so afraid of doing something wrong. I just wanted to be perfect, this little perfect child. So I didn't honor myself. And then in the exercise, I was like, oh, come on, girl. I was actually judging her.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said that to my teacher, like, what's going on here? I can't forgive her. And then she said something that just hit home. She said, well, then you need to forgive your adult self for not being able to forgive. And then I was like, wow. So she totally flipped it upside down. And I realized that it was the adult self that couldn't forgive. And the inner child needed to forgive her. So I went back and I went into that little child and I forgave my adult self for being so judgmental. And that shifted things for me, because I realized that I really then realized what we have been talking about, that the inner child, like that child, she's so innocent. It's the adult that is judging, Yeah. So when I managed to then forgive my adult self, things started becoming more smooth in my inner child work, and I started opening up for my inner child much, much more, and we kind of started to connect much, much more. So it's interesting, this work. Sometimes you need an insight, you need a sentence from somebody, from a teacher, from a friend, from a colleague, or somebody you are close to, connected to, that is making you aware of, oh, that's the last piece of the puzzle that makes you get that aha. So I just love this journey because it's fascinating, and I think things are coming at the right time, as long as we're choosing or willing to open up, willing to go this path, saying to the universe, I'm willing, I'm here, I'm open, give it to me. Okay, I'm here. It's courageous.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And do you maybe have some last advice for people who want to be more courageous and to speak up more? Because I know it's also difficult for some people to speak up and express themselves. Do you maybe have some last advice if someone struggles with that?
Yeah. I know that for some it can be really, really difficult, and it basically has to do with everything we've been talking about today. So that can be a place to start, of course, to look at, why am I holding myself back, or why am I afraid? What is this fear about? And also, in a way, embracing the fear, because the fear is there to protect you. So don't judge the fear in a way, because the fear is really part of us, a part of the reptile brain, our oldest brain, that is there to protect us from danger. So it's only trying to do good in a way. But then fear is not dangerous. It's just a feeling. So trying to then observe more what's going on in your body. Wow, what is happening right now? Just a thought of speaking in public, for instance, or saying what I actually mean. What happens in your body? And then stay present in that. Notice what is happening. Because when we are disassociating from it, we're not present in the moment. And then when you can close your eyes and you can ask, where is this feeling coming from? What is it trying to tell me? And you might get some answers, and it's usually the first thing you think about. You can get a picture and an image, so you can communicate with that fear. What is this about? Or communicate with a part of the body that is appearing in, maybe in your chest. Wow, I feel something in my chest. What are you trying to tell me, dear chest? What is this about? And then be relaxed in a meditative state, and you can get some answer about it. And then also, I believe in training your mind, knowing that, okay, this is just a feeling. This is not who I am. It's just a feeling I'm having right now. I am not the fear. And training yourself to see that you are not your thoughts. And the thought always comes before a feeling. So there's always a thought first. So when we can identify what is that thought, I'm so scared of coming out with what I actually want to do. Yeah, I'm so afraid. What am I so afraid of? And asking questions. Ask yourself, what am I so afraid of? Well, this can happen and that can happen. Okay, what will happen if that happens? What is the worst that can happen? And there are many levels to this. I think it has to do with self-knowledge, getting to know yourself, what is behind this fear. And it can be really valid. It can be something that happened when you did speak up, so you can't feel like, well, when I spoke up, I was, made a fool out of in class or something like that. But like Buddha says, what you are now is what you have been. What you will be is what you do now. So knowing that we can always start in the moment and look forward, that our past doesn't need to define us. It can if we want it to, but it doesn't need to. I mean, I love what Buddha says there. He's one of my greatest teachers, and I really trust him. So that's my greatest advice, to just know that you can, from here on, create a totally new future for yourself.
Thank you. It was beautiful advice. And I really want to thank you so much for being here today. It was lovely speaking to you. And thank you for all the beautiful advice and sharing your own stories.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you so much for the work that you're doing and your beautiful sharing as well. That's a true gift for those who are listening. So thank you. Much light from here.
Bye.
Bye.